Let me begin by just a straight up question. What do you make of the Democratic National Convention?
So I've watched the entirety of it basically from about 6:30 to midnight plus. So far, I think Democrats are hitting all the notes that they need to hit. It is a Democratic convention. It's off-putting to me. But it is a very celebratory affair. It has entertainment value, which is not something you can say about a lot of Democratic conventions. It is chock full of nonsense and flagrant lies, a lot of which irritate me. But I don't know if they irritate everybody else. I think the kind of enthusiasm that you're seeing from Democrats is infectious, and Republicans should be concerned about that. I think they're going to come out of, I think Harris will come out of this with a small bump, and bumps in conventions historically matter. So we shall see. The big question is whether
I've
Kamala
been
Harris
saying,
can apply for a bump.
I've been predicting for weeks it'll be a 7 to 10 point Harris lead at the end of the week.
Ooh.
Right now, though, the most recent reputable poll was the Economist YouGov poll of yesterday that Harris up 3. But when you get into the crosstabs, still yesterday, wrong track. This is a month after Joe Biden got up. Right track, wrong track. 26% of the country thinks we're on the right track. 63% of the country thinks we're on the wrong track. If we're on the wrong track, do you vote for Harris Walls, Noah?
I can't imagine why you would ratify the conditions that presently exist, if that's what you're thinking. But more calculations that go into voting than just that. And you can also say that Donald Trump owns the issues that are most salient to voters in this election cycle. The election, the economy, or rather, inflation, the economy more broadly, immigration. These are Donald Trump's issues to the tune of double digits in these polls. But it is still a jump ball race, which tells you that voters are not making purely parochial calculations based on their own interests. It's broader than that, especially among the
I
squishy
agree.
middle voters who just, they vote on sentimentality and how they're feeling about the candidates. That's the sort of thing that Republicans are vulnerable on.
I had a chance to talk to the former president yesterday, and he was doing a media blitz. They're doing counter programming. And I spent most of my time focused on Israel because I do believe there is a distinct, small, but nevertheless distinctly important group of voters who put the safety of the Jewish state at the top or very close to the top of their list of salient concerns that motivate their voting. At the end of that, I can safely say Donald Trump is for Israel and will urge and support them in their war with Hezbollah and Iran if necessary. I don't know that I've heard that from the Democrats. What do you think on the issue of Israel? Does Donald Trump have an edge over Kamala Harris?
Oh, yeah, of course. He most certainly does. And Democrats have only themselves to blame. Joe Biden inaugurated U.S. support for Israel's mission in Gaza after 10/7 in every way that I would support. His rhetoric was pitch perfect, and his support for the Jewish state in material terms was out in the open and unapologetic, and it was commensurate with their need. The support materially is still commensurate with their need, but they're very sheepish and shy about it. They're very insecure about it. They don't want anybody to know. And so as a result, people are suspicious of their commitment to Israeli security and the U.S.-Israeli relationship, to say nothing of the fact that they'll pare back 2,000-pound bombs every so often to make the activists happy, or withdraw U.S. diplomatic support for Israel in the United Nations. So there's evidence to suggest that Democrats get really queasy when Israel executes its right to defend itself, its sovereignty, and its citizens. And Republicans and everybody who supports Israeli security should know that, should internalize that, and should understand that the stakes of this election are just that. Israel needs the space to do what it has said it wants to do, what Joe Biden said he agrees with, which is neutralizing Hamas on the Gaza Strip as a political and military force. That, and only that, will create a better day for the Palestinian people in Gaza. The administration's political people like to say, oh, you can't kill an idea. Sure, you can't kill an idea, but you can kill its capacity to execute its will, to project force across its borders. You can neutralize its command and control structure. You can displace it, and you can replace it with a responsible civilian authority. The United States didn't destroy Baathism entirely. It's very alive and well right across the border in Syria. What it did was destroy the capacity of Baathism to be a political and military force in Iraq. And that alone is where you begin. The problem of the day after is a problem for the day after. We have to get there first.
Now, I want to drill down a little bit into the Iran issue. Yesterday, France rescued 28 soldiers held on a ship seized by the Houthis or under attack by the Houthis. I'm not quite sure from the report. And the warnings began again that Iran is gearing up to attack Israel. I asked the former president, what happens if Iran goes a second time? We know Joe Biden told Benjamin Netanyahu to, quote, take the win the first time, and Israel did something, some kind of a secret weapon that they demonstrated to shock and awe a little bit without doing much. Yesterday, Donald Trump said there must be retribution if there's a second strike. I agree with that. What do you think, Noah?
So it depends on the nature of the strike. I agree with the former president in philosophical terms that there does need to be retaliation, not just a fate-saving maneuver, but something that demonstrates capabilities and capacity and intimidates and restores deterrence to the regime in Iran. That's what Israel did after the April strike that you mentioned. And it's probably it went into the considerations that resulted in this campaign of assassinations immediately following a Hezbollah strike on a bunch of Druze children. 12 children died. They're members of the Druze minority in the Golan Heights. And there's politics that happens in Israel, too. It seems like this is something that needs to be said very often. It was the Druze and their allies that were demanding, a non-Jewish minority, by the way, that was demanding retaliation against Hezbollah for this abject slaughter of their children. And Israel managed to get around that by executing these very pinpoint strikes on high-level targets in the command structure of the IRGC and Hezbollah and Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. That was satisfying enough. And even the fact that it was such a light, small footprint in these strikes, that still frustrates the anti-Israel activists because they don't want to see Israel act in its own self-defense. But you do have to do something. And I think that calculation applies to Iran, too. Iran does believe that it has to conduct a face-saving strike. What form that takes is probably going to be very calibrated just by virtue of the fact that we've waited this long. So hopefully it's just a box-checking exercise. But if they kill a lot of Israelis, Israel will have to respond with overwhelming force.
I think that's it. Overwhelming force. If they do anything serious, overwhelming force. Here's where I want to close. I quoted to the former president yesterday the line that Kamala Harris has used. I lived in California throughout her 2 terms as Attorney General, her election as senator. Then I moved back to Virginia. So I know a lot about how she debates. Her favorite line in every debate is, the 5 words I've used the most in my career are Kamala Harris, for the people. And I told the former president, she's going to say, I've convicted people like you. I've convicted rapists. I've convicted fraudsters. I know you, Donald Trump. He didn't have a good answer yesterday, either for those 5 words, I'm Kamala Harris, for the people, or I've convicted people like you. What is his best response, Noah, if you were doing debate coaching with Donald Trump? Because those are good lines.
Those are good lines. I think if I had to get into the psychology of the Trump team, and I have no special insight there, I think they're struggling to move on in that issue from Joe Biden because they had such a great retort to Joe Biden. All the stuff around Hunter, all the stuff around Joe Biden and Jim Biden, and the business deals with China and Ukraine and Burisma, all that was going to neutralize that issue for Donald Trump. And they don't have a way to neutralize that effectively with Kamala Harris. I don't think they have any other option but to say lawfare, persecution. They're going after me because they're trying to go after you. And frankly, that stuff is road worn. It's a little threadbare. If you've heard it before.
I think the answer, Noah, my answer is Vice President Harris or Kamala, you say for the people. You're actually for the Democrats. You're for your machine. You're not for the people. But I don't know that they can get that kind of training and discipline into the former president.
Isn't that pretty much the same thing? They're coming after me. These are all trumped up charges.
Yes.
It's just an attempt to get me out of the way. And yeah, I think that's their only line. Maybe it'll work, but it seems like it has been deployed to the degree that it has lost a lot of its punch. They do need another line. And maybe they have some opposition research. Look, they're going with Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi Gabbard is advising this campaign. And what Tulsi Gabbard did was go after her prosecutorial record. But she did so by saying you were too hard on crime. Certain crimes we don't want to prosecute anymore. And that just doesn't match.
Well, remember, Trump signed he signed the prison reform. That would be an inversion of expectations. But you're right, Noah, that's possible if he's talking to Tulsi Gabbard. I'm a little bit worried about that.